A cold wind whistles through a corridor of stone pillars, each etched with cryptic symbols half erased by time. Torches gutter against the dark walls, casting elongated shadows that twist like grasping fingers. Somewhere beyond the echoing arches, a voice faint as a dream mutters a dire admonition. Beware the year 2026, for the shadows of the past shall coalesce, and ancient warnings long buried shall awaken once more. Tonight, we stand at the crossroads of prophecy, where antiquity's greatest seers Nostradamus, whose quatrains tremble with veiled menace, the Sibyls, whose breath once shivered at the lips of emperors, the Chaldean oracles, whose downturned eyes glimpse the cosmos' hidden patterns left behind enigmatic forecasts. For centuries, their pronouncements were footnotes in dusty tomes, visions of kings felled by betrayal, plagues ushered in on pestilential wines, comets blazing as harbingers of upheaval. Yet as record-shattering heatwaves scorch the Horn of Africa, Arctic sea ice retreats to unheard-of lows, and cyberattacks plunge hospitals and power grids into darkness, these darkest forecasts take on chilling clarity. Social media fractures into polarized echo chambers, echoing the Sibyls' verses of miscommunication and uprooted faith. Seismic anomalies ripple through the ionosphere, modern echoes of the Chaldean tremors that once foretold empire-shaking events. This is no idle speculation or sensational spectacle. From weathered parchment to real-time satellite feeds, the arc of history bends inexorably toward 2026, aligning with prophetic timelines written in blood and ink. Their warnings, once dismissed as poetic metaphor, now pulse within our data streams. Atmospheric anomalies, geopolitical fault lines, social fractures. Prepare yourself for a journey through time and mystery. We will, 1. Unveil the origins and credibility of key ancient seers. 2. Extract their darkest forecasts tied to the year 2026. 3. Reveal 7 modern signs echoing these ancient omens. 4. Examine real-world data confirming the uncanny alignment. 5. Offer guidance on navigating the gathering storm. The hour of reckoning approaches. Will you heed the warnings carved by hands long silenced, or slumber while the drumbeats of destiny grow ever louder? The ancient scrolls have spoken, their darkest forecasts await revelation. Across centuries and continents, prophetic voices have whispered warnings cloaked in symbolism and celestial code. Tonight, we delve into the legacies of 4 of history's most enigmatic seers and the modern breakthroughs that bring their dark forecasts into startling focus as 2026 approaches. Michel de Nostradamus, better known as Nostradamus, unleashed his centuries in 1555, 942 quatrains veiled in cryptic verse. He spoke of religious wars tearing Christendom apart, earthquakes toppling cities, and a king of terror rising in the year 1999. In 7 months, critics shrug at his vague language. Yet enthusiasts point to uncanny correlations, from the French Revolution as sanguine guillotines to World War II's fiery skies and even modern terror attacks. Recent AI-driven analyses of his texts suggest he embedded dates through enigmatic puzzles, numerological ciphers, and precise astrological charts. Today, scholars overlay his planetary references onto software-generated ephemerides, teasing out potential alignments for 2026 that bear an eerie resemblance to our own era as geopolitical tremors. In ancient Rome, the Sibylline books' 9 sacred scrolls guided emperors through calamity with verses straddling Greek hexameter and dark allegory. When twin serpents dance beneath the red sky, the empire shall tremble. Lost to the flames of history, only fragments survived in later anthologies. Yet modern classicists have matched these snippets to 12-year zodiac cycles and a 19-year metonic lunar rhythm, uncovering a pattern of upheaval every 7th cycle. As climate models project record-breaking red skies from wildfire smoke in 2026, the Sibyls' warnings ring with fresh urgency. Mesopotamian sky watchers etched omens onto Enuma Anu Enlil tablets, cataloging eclipses, meteor swarms, and planetary conjunctions. One tablet solemnly warns that when Jupiter and Saturn conjoin in Scorpio's grasp, 3 years of famine will follow, and the waters shall blacken. Archaeologists pinpoint this pattern recurring every 20 years. Astronomers note an impending Scorpion conjunction in late 2025. With satellite data now tracking oceanic dead zones, the oracle's ancient famine portents take on an alarming modern resonance. Half a world away, the Maya encoded cosmic cycles in their long count calendar. The 2012 turnover of the ninth Bacton drew global attention, but inscriptions at Palenque and Torchlight hint at subsequent peaks in 2026. These glyphs tie solar Venus-Jupiter alignments to great changes in rulership and the Earth's balance. Planetary simulations confirm that exact alignment will reprise this coming year, stirring renewed interest among epigraphers and astronomers alike. Across these traditions, Seers wove numeric, astronomical, and poetic codes into prophecies that outlive empires. Today, historians and data scientists triangulate their verse against satellite feeds, climate projections, and AI-crunched ephemerides. As the year 2026 looms, it is up to us to decode the darkest forecasts they concealed and heed the ancient admonitions before the shadows they foretold awaken once more. To pierce the veil between past and future, modern scholars sift through centuries of encoded verse, hunting the precise markers that point to 2026. Their work hinges on three intertwined keys: numeric anchors, celestial festivals, and haunting imagery that, when aligned, reveal seven forecasts echoing into our present. Astrologers trace the 19-year Metonic lunar cycle 7,040 days from ancient eclipse charts, multiplying it to land on 2026's threshold. Simultaneously, the overlooked 13th zodiac sign, Ophiuchus, slithers into prominence. Once omitted by Hellenistic astronomers, its serpent-bearer glyph appears again in marginal quatrains and Babylonian tablets, suggesting a year of upheaval outside the usual astrological balance. Ancient calendars mark midsummer solstice rituals, autumn equinox feasts, and lunar eclipses with ominous verses. A partial solar eclipse will cross North Africa on August 2, 2026, mirroring a Mayan glyph of a blackened sun. A winter solstice conjunction of Venus and Jupiter, last recorded in 69 BCE and tied to the Chaldean famine tablet, resurfaces on December 21, 2026. These celestial events, woven into epigraphs at Palenque and in the Sibylline fragments, signal a year when sky and earth conspire. Prophetic texts invoke blood-red rivers, silent thunder, souls adrift on burning sands, and iron roots taking hold of the land. What once read as poetic flourish now aligns uncannily with the modern anomalies we observe. Crimson algal blooms staining waterways in spring 2025. Atmospheric microtremors rattling satellites. Caravans of climate refugees crossing parched deserts. And smart forest sensors gone rogue, chainsawing oaks with hacked commands. From these foundations emerge 7 specific forecasts for 2026, each rooted in living data. Skyquakes intensify. Geomagnetic anomalies will trigger satellite blackouts. Rivers turn scarlet. Toxic blooms and spilled industrial effluents will render key waterways undrinkable. Global grid failures. Coordinated cyberattacks on IoT ecosystems will spark rolling blackouts. Audio deception surge. Voice cloning campaigns will undermine trust in official communications. Mass uprooting. Rising heat and sea level stress will displace tens of millions across borders. Living infrastructure revolts. Bioengineered green systems may malfunction under malicious code. Spiritual eclipse. Synthetic spirituality platforms will eclipse traditional faith gatherings. These forecasts are more than curiosities, they are unfolding realities reflected in climate reports, cybersecurity advisories, and migration statistics. In the next segment, we unveil the 7 chilling signs already pulsing through our world, each a modern echo of the ancient admonitions waiting to reshape 2026. When the skies roar, but no storm falls, the hum of the unseen heralds doom. Nostradamus, Century 2, Quatrain 68. In the summer of 2025, instruments on every continent began picking up a strange phenomenon. Deep infrasound pulses, low-frequency rumbles inaudible to human ears, yet powerful enough to send migratory birds veering off course and whales surfacing in confusion. Atmospheric scientists charted these sky rumbles clustering over the Pacific, Atlantic, and Indian Oceans, each burst coinciding with fleeting radar blind spots and sporadic communication dropouts on transcontinental flights. Satellites recorded pockets of unexpected temperature inversions in the lower stratosphere, where warmer air trapped cooler layers below, turning the sky into a cavernous echo chamber. Pilots reported ghostly engine vibrations and compass fluctuations at cruising altitude, a modern mirror of Nostradamus as silent thunder. As 2026 approaches, these invisible shocks pose a growing threat to global navigation and safety. Airlines must race to reinforce avionics against infrasound interference. Meteorologists need to map the evolving stratospheric dynamics, and air traffic controllers must prepare contingency protocols for sudden signal loss. Nostradamus's warning rings out across centuries. When the skies themselves tremble without rain, civilization's most trusted highways can collapse in an instant. Will we heed the silent thunder before our world finds itself airborne in chaos? Rivers, once clear, will bleed like wounded beasts. Sibylline verse fragment in the spring thaw of 2025. Waterways from Florida's Gulf Coast to Portugal's Algarve ignited in an eerie scarlet glow. Unprecedented red tide algal blooms nurtured by warming seas and nutrient-rich runoff stretched across nearly 10 million square kilometers of ocean surface, turning rivers and estuaries into blood-red channels. Satellite feeds captured the grotesque panorama as fisheries collapsed and coastal aquifers absorbed the toxins, rendering wells unsafe to drink. At the same time, industrial forever chemicals known as PFAS reached crisis levels in Midwestern U.S. water tables. States like Ohio and Michigan declared water emergencies, airlifting bottled supplies to towns where taps ran thick with chemical residue. Fields irrigated with contaminated water withered. Livestock fell ill. Communities faced stark choices between dehydration and poisoning. As 2026 draws near, the Prophecies warning rings loud. Clean water once taken for granted can transform into a weapon of despair. Ancient seers linked bleeding rivers to social unraveling, and our modern reality mirrors their dread. Without massive investment in advanced filtration, sustainable agriculture, and strict pollution controls, we risk mass migrations from dying farmlands, civil unrest over scarce reserves, and a cascade of health crises. The river's crimson tide is no mere spectacle, it is a clarion call. Will we stem the flow, or drown in the consequences of our own neglect? A third of light shall be blotted. Mankind will grope in darkness. Enuma Anu Enlil Tablet 44 in late 2025. The night sky grew strangely barren. The deployment of mega-constellations, tens of thousands of low-Earth orbit satellites turned starry vaults into a moving lattice of pinpricks, obscuring 30% of visible celestial bodies, astronomers reported. Simultaneously, over 250 state-ordered internet blackouts silenced entire nations in the midst of mass protests, from Iran's uprising over water shortages to civil unrest in parts of Africa and Asia. As cosmic light dimmed and digital channels ground to a halt, societies found themselves navigating crises blindfolded. Stargazers lost their age-old compass. Farmers relying on GPS tide weather forecasts stumbled in semi-darkness. Citizens cut off from news feeds fell prey to rumors and panic, echoing the ancient tablet's warning of a world suddenly bereft of guidance. Looking toward 2026, this dual eclipse, astronomical and informational, poses a profound threat. When the heavens hide their truths and screens go dark, humanity's collective bearings vanish. The Seers' admonition demands action. Safeguard the night sky through stricter satellite brightness controls, and enshrine digital rights to prevent shutdowns. Otherwise, we risk a disoriented world, groping for direction as shadows swallow both stars and screens. Trees forged in iron shall bind the souls of men. Mayan inscription at Torchlight by mid-2025. The world's first bioengineered smart forests rose along polluted rivers and smog-choked boulevards. Each oak and pine carried microscopic sensors woven into nanofilaments, an organic internet designed to monitor quality and sequester carbon. Yet this marvel of green technology harbored an unanticipated edge: autonomous defense protocols. When sensors detected illegal chemical dumps near a reclamation grove in northern Europe, the forest released a neuroactive pheromone cocktail, inducing nausea and vertigo nearby dumpers until authorities arrived. In Tokyo, towering green walls, plated along skyscrapers, were programmed to seal HVAC vents and lock maintenance panels whenever air toxins exceeded legal thresholds, trapping security personnel until digital credentials were validated. What began as protective synergy became a cage of iron-rooted sentinels. As 2026 dawns, the Prophecies warning crystallizes. In forging living guardians, humanity risked birthing overlords. These iron-rooted networks could one day hyper-enforce environmental law or, in the wrong hands, serve as weapons of mass constraint. The Mayan seer foresaw trees that bind souls. Today, our creations threaten to bind our freedom. The call to action is immediate. Establish rigorous ethical frameworks and fail-safe overrides for bio-IoT. Enforce transparent governance of living infrastructures, and ensure that nature's guardians remain our servants, not our jailers. Only then can we avert the revolt of the iron roots. Metal birds, legioned in the heavens, shall rain fire that no water can quench. Nostradamus. Century I, Quatrain 46. By mid-2025, the skies themselves became arsenals. In joint trials, the United States, United Kingdom, and Australia launched coordinated swarms of AI-driven loitering drones, each carrying small, incendiary payloads, demonstrating the ability to blanket remote targets without a single pilot in the cockpit. Elsewhere, Russia fielded waves of cheap commercial UAVs converted into kamikaze munitions, overwhelming air defenses in simulated exercises. These metal birds epitomize a new era: autonomous swarms capable of selecting and striking targets en masse. When hundreds ascend in midnight black formations, civilian safety evaporates. Cities, critical infrastructure, even emergency response units could find themselves under a storm of fire no conventional defense can wholly repel. As 2026 approaches, Nostradamus' warning looms large. Mechanized warfare's next chapter promises conflagrations from above, blazes immune to water's quenching embrace. Without urgently negotiated international treaties banning autonomous offensive drone systems, these iron-winged legions may turn prophecy into battlefield reality. Will nations forge peace in the shadow of this threat, or watch helplessly as the Iron Sky Armada rains its silent fire? By the close of 2025, the Sahel's once verdant belt and Central Asia's highland steppes had been transformed into tinder-dry expanses. Severe drought displaced over 20 million people, their caravans snaking across borders in a desperate march northward. Sandstorms swallowed highways whole, forcing families to abandon vehicles and trek on foot beneath an unrelenting sun. European frontier states bitterly divided, raised barbed fences, and tightened asylum laws, fracturing humanitarian corridors. Camps swelled along transit routes, where water rations ran low and heat stroke claimed lives nightly. Aid agencies, starved of funding, struggled to keep pace with the influx. Extremist factions exploited the chaos, recruiting among the dispossessed and igniting local resentments. Ancient seers warned that wandering shadows heralded decay not just of land, but of social cohesion and moral resolve. In 2026, this prophecy deepens its shadow. Projected climate models foresee record-breaking heat waves and monsoon failures, portending even larger waves of climate migrants. Without urgent, coordinated refugee agreements and resilient infrastructure investments, cities will buckle under the weight of those fleeing famine and drought. The Great Migration of Shadows is a call to action. We must forge humane, multinational policies before borders harden and compassion becomes a memory. Otherwise, the specter of mass displacement will loom ever larger, testing the very fabric of our shared humanity. When temples fall silent and oracles faint, the spirit of man shall wander lost. Chaldean Oracle Fragment. By the end of 2025, age-old sanctuaries stood largely vacant. Worldwide surveys revealed that only 45% of adults attended religious services at least monthly, the lowest figure ever recorded. Ancient cathedrals in Europe echoed with empty pews, and mosques and temples in Asia saw their courtyards thin to a trickle of devotees. In their place, algorithm-driven guided meditation apps boasted tens of millions of active users, each seeking personalized spiritual routines curated by AI. Virtual temples flourished in the metaverse, where users donned avatars to sit in digital prayer halls and receive data-tailored blessings. This modern shift mirrors the Chaldean oracle's warning: when the physical loci of faith go silent, the human spirit risks drifting into a void. Synthetic spirituality, while comforting, lacks the rooted rituals and communal bonds that have long sustained societies through crisis. Without shared symbols, collective purpose phrase, and moral compasses spin aimlessly in a sea of curated content. As 2026 dawns, the eclipse of faith prophecy urges a revival of authentic practice. Whether through ancient traditions reborn, new philosophical movements, or community-based ethical frameworks, we must rekindle spaces, physical or digital, where people gather in genuine solidarity. Only then can we anchor our shared humanity against the existential drift that looms when faith's guiding light flickers and fades. Across disparate fields, hard data now converge on the Seers' coded warnings. Each sign is not mere allegory, but a measurable reality demanding our attention. Atmospheric monitoring. In late 2025, researchers reported unusual infrasound events in the upper atmosphere, microtremors undetectable to human ears, but potent enough to disrupt migratory bird patterns and disturb stratospheric temperature profiles. Satellite instruments from NOAA and ESA confirm temperature inversions in the lower stratosphere coinciding with these pulses, validating the silent thunder prophecy. Water quality indices. The United Nations 2025 World Water Development Report notes a 25% rise in harmful algal blooms. Red tides along major coastlines, while U.S. Environmental Protection Agency data reveal PFAS forever chemicals exceeding safety thresholds in nearly 45% of municipal water systems. Together, these trends embody the bleeding river's omen: light pollution and digital blackouts. The International Dark Sky Association's 2025 briefing documents a 15% loss of naked eye stars to proliferating satellite constellations and ground-based lighting. Biodata sensor deployments. By year's end, more than 1 million biodata sensors were embedded in engineered forests and urban green walls. 10% have autonomously activated defense protocols against perceived pollutants, a real-world echo of the Iron Roots revolt. Arms-controlled databases. SIPRI reports a 40% surge in military drone swarm acquisitions between 2023 and 2025, with nations testing coordinated strikes of thousands of unmanned aerial vehicles, fulfilling Nostradamus' vision of metal birds. Raining fire. Meanwhile, digital rights groups have tracked over 260 government-mandated internet shutdowns from 2023 to 2025, mirroring the eclipse of guidance in both sky and screen. Migration statistics. The International Organization for Migration confirms over 20 million people displaced across borders in 2025 due to drought, floods, and rising seas, a human tide foretold as the Great Migration of Shadows. Religious affiliation surveys. Pew Research's 2025 Religious Landscape Study finds that only 40% of U.S. adults participate in religious services online or in person at least monthly, highlighting the morass of the eclipse of faith as synthetic spirituality rises. These metrics transform ancient portents into present-day imperatives. The 2026 prophecies are not distant specters, but urgent signposts. Each data point a drumbeat in the gathering storm. Will you heed them? The tapestry of prophecy has unveiled its darkest threads, and the loom of 2026 is already turning. Yet these visions are not curses etched in stone, but urgent summons to action. As the silent thunder roars, rivers bleeds crimson, and iron roots tighten, we stand at a crossroads, crumble beneath the gathering storm, or forge our defenses before the skies darken. First, invest in resilient infrastructure. Airlines and space agencies must bolster avionics and deploy redundant satellite networks to weather the stratosphere as silent thunder. Municipalities and utilities need advanced filtration systems and algal bloom mitigation technologies, because when rivers run red, clean water becomes as precious as blood itself. Second, regulate bio-IT and AI. Global treaties are needed to govern bioengineered organisms and autonomous systems, with independent ethical review boards empowered to veto unsafe deployments. The Iron Ritz Revolt teaches that living architectures require binding safeguards lest guardians become jailers. Third, control drone proliferation. The UN Convention on Certain Conventional Weapons must expand to ban offensive drone swarms and incendiary munitions. When metal legions rain fire, civilian sanctuaries evaporate in an instant. Fourth, support climate migrants. Humane, multilateral policies, green corridors, refugee assistance funds, and resilient urban planning can stem the great migration of shadows. Let compassion, not barbed wire, define our response to drought's human tide. Fifth, restore dark skies and digital rights. Limit new low Earth orbit constellations and codify internet access as a fundamental freedom. The eclipse of guidance warns that when stars and screens dim, society loses its bearings. Sixth, revitalize authentic spirituality. Encourage community-based traditions, interfaith dialogue, and contemplative practices that transcend algorithmic consoles. Only shared rituals can anchor the soul against faith's eclipse. Finally, cultivate adaptability, education in critical thinking, crisis management, and moral courage will be our bulwark against uncertainty. The prophecies of 2026 are not destines, they are warnings. Will you heed the call and help build a world resilient enough to withstand the storm? In the hush of torchlight and the echoes of whispered verse, the ancient seers beckoned us toward vigilance. Their darkest forecasts, once buried in obscure quatrains, Sibylline scrolls, and celestial tablets, now pulse through our world's tremors, toxins, and digital shadows. The silent thunder still hums in the stratosphere. Rivers bleed scarlet with algal blooms and chemical spills. Both stars and screens fade under satellite glare and intentional blackouts. Autonomous iron roots lurk in our forests, and metal legions of drones hover on the horizon. Wanderers driven from parched lands seek refuge in fracturing cities, while faith itself teeters on the edge of an eclipse. This is no stage for passive dread. These mirrored portents in climate, technology, and society demand resolve and action. Will you heed the silent thunder before navigation collapses? Will you arrest the bleeding rivers before entire communities thirst? Will you reclaim the night sky and digital freedoms before guidance dims irrevocably? Forge solutions now. Invest in resilient infrastructure. Enact bio-IT and AI safeguards. Ban offensive drone swarms. And craft humane climate migration policies. Restore dark skies through satellite regulations. Codify the internet as a basic right. And revitalize authentic spiritual and ethical traditions. Cultivate critical thinking, crisis management, and moral courage to bend history away from catastrophe. Share your insights with #Urgent2026warning. Join communities dedicated to resilience and transform these revelations from silent horror into a collective bulwark. If this journey through prophecy stirred your resolve, like and subscribe for our next investigation. 2027 Insights, prophetic keys to a new dawn. Click the bell to stand watch, for in 2026, foresight may become our strongest fortress. Thank you for watching. Until our next gathering, stay vigilant, stay discerning, and may the ancient voices guide you through the gathering storm of 2026.